Good evening, everyone. We're about to start the meeting. Today is our committee of the whole meeting. Today is Thursday. Can I have everyone's attention, please? We're about to start the meeting. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're live. Thank you. Today is Thursday, May 29th, 2025. I am Trippy Congo, President of Wilmington City Council. At this time, I will call the roll. Councilmember Owens. Councilmember Darby.
Present.
Councilwoman Oliver has asked to be excused. Councilmember Harley.
Present.
Councilmember Willauer.
Present.
Councilmember McCoy has asked to be excused. Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Field. Councilmember Bracy has asked to be excused. Councilmember Cabrera. Councilmember Spadola. And Councilmember Hackett has also asked to be excused. WITN, is anyone from council on Zoom? No, okay. All right, today we do have several items on our agenda. We are going to start with a discussion on license and inspection reform from the Lancaster site visit. Who's here to speak to that?
I can speak to it. We also do have Council Member Christian Wellauer, who also attended the site visit to Lancaster. But I can give some background, and then Christian, go Council Member Wellauer, if you would like to share, you can also. The city council, the administration is very aware that our department, our license and inspection department, needs to be reformed. I do want to say that Gabriel Papone, our commissioner for LNI, within his first 90 days, he has jumped straight in, looking at the process and procedures and really cleaning up the department, changing the culture, and looking at how we can make LNI a better department for the city, right? And it's so key and important. Our LNI department, they really work with our renters, our tenants, and our landlords in our city to make sure that we have safe housing for people who live in our city, which we know there's an issue and problem. My first term in city council, I was very adamant about LNI needing a reform. I contacted some of my national organizations, like, I need a model city in regards to who's doing really good in this area of, working with tenants and landlords, doing inspections and licensing around this particular issue. They connected me with the city of Lancaster, who was a model city in regards to how they were interacting with renters, how they were interacting with landlords, how they were interacting internally and efficiently running their department to be able to conduct these inspections and actually improve the grade of housing available to renters in their city. So the city of Lancaster is in Pennsylvania. It's a city of similar size to the city of Wilmington. The demographics are a little bit different. However, they are some of the very similar city to the city of Wilmington. Was the closest that we could find. Because when I use Philadelphia or a big city, people don't like that. So I made sure to find a city of similar size and some other similarities between our city. So we visited the city of Lancaster in my first term. Councilmember Willauer was just a constituent at that point when she came, and we had other constituents and other council members who attended that one. And we didn't get really a lot of support from the administration about license LNI reform. This time again, with the new administration, I was on it. I said, listen, we have to go to the city of Lancaster. I would love for Mayor Carney to come. And Mayor Carney actually went on this visit with us to the city of Lancaster. Our Commissioner Papone also went on this site visit. And I was excited. I was shocked and excited to have the mayor and the commissioner and also my other city council colleagues join us on this site visit. And what we were able to hear is how a city of similar size has been able to operate and be efficient in their inspections and improve the grade of housing in the city of Wilmington. So I do want to say, like, we hear what the community is saying, that we are really adamant about L&I, how we are providing services to our community. We're looking at, they have, like, beforehand, there wasn't like a universal checklist for all inspectors. Now they have one. They're using systems and processes and procedures. They're going to make sure to hit every single rental unit, getting into the senior high rises. Like, these are the things and goals that they have. So we're going to give Commissioner Papone a few more months to be able to implement some of the things that he's looking forward to do in the L&I department. And then in August, September, around that time, he's going to come and do a presentation to talk about all of the reform work that he has completed at that point. And at that point, again, we're going to have a conversation with the L&I department to see how we can take steps further to making sure that we're providing a better service to our community, for our renters, and even for our landlords. So that was like a summary of the site visit. I know Councilmember Will, I don't know if anything you would like to add, or if any of the my council colleagues will have any questions about that site visit and like what L&I is doing around reform for our city here.
I have a question.
Yes, Councilmember Harley.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Darby, for that short summary. How were they paying for it? What were the business license fees? I would think that they have a similar setup. What do you know what their business license fees are in terms of like how they were able to fund it?
Yeah, so I met with James Nixon at the time. He was the L&I director, or I don't know what his title was, but yeah, he was in charge of that department. And he talked about when he came in and did the reforms, they also increased the business license. So the business license is more than the city of Wilmington. However, they provide things like GIS mapping. They have apps. They have a better efficient system for systematic and complaints, and also Airbnbs. They already have a process for that. So yes, their business license has increased because of the reform work that they did.
Do you know what the price is?
No, I don't know offhand.
Okay. Can you find out?
Yeah, I can have my staff. They have someone email it to you. They have the information.
All right, thank you. Because that may be the difference, possibly, I don't know, in terms of what they're charging for their business license fees. So I think that's worth finding out. So thank you.
I would like to, am I able to?
Yes, Councilmember Darby.
Yeah, so the difference is not even just the cost, but their commitment to actually coming up with efficient processes and procedures. So you can have we increased our business license fees for our landlords, and we didn't do anything to improve our services for them. So they actually looked at improving services and being more efficient to be able to offer these services to people. So the business license fee, and even they have less inspectors, and they're able to be way more efficient and be way more efficient and be able to get all the inspections done in their city that they are able to. So it's really not a matter of funding or money, because they're actually doing it with less inspectors. They're more efficient. They really believed in communication, transparency, and being innovative in what they were doing. And our city hasn't done that at all.
Follow up?
Yes, Councilmember Harley.
Fiscal impact always does matter. I do agree with you that commitment and the will to want to do it, I agree with that 100%. But I will almost promise you that their business license, there's a fiscal ingredient in here somewhere that allows them to do that. I don't disagree. You have to have will and intention 100%. But when we find out how much their licenses are, we can probably continue the conversation. Thank you.
Councilmember Willauer.
Yeah, I just want to thank Councilwoman Darby, involved residents and landlords and renters in this conversation. And I had the chance to go to Lancaster, and I was really impressed, along with the others who went on that original site visit, because they do have a fee structure that supports their work, but it is a lot more than just a fee structure. And they were generous enough to meet with us, explain their procedures, also go and go around the city and talk to them about how they address specific issues. And then it has been really great that this administration has committed to learning from Lancaster and other cities, and that the commissioner is, committed to doing real L&I reform. And I think the path forward, and I just do want to commend you, Councilwoman Darby, for initiating this, is this collaboration between landlords and the Department of License and Inspection and council. So I think that's the way to go. I'm excited to be part of it, and I hope that, we continue to include other people and make that process just really the process of reform transparent. And I also want to say that this effort to reform L&I goes back, before this initiative. I see some people in the room who are part of Councilwoman Dixon's, I forget what it was called, but it was a subcommittee of the Land Use and Planning Committee. So I know that there is an option for, creating those kind of committees, and that the ideas that came out of that continue to be part of the conversations about L&I reform today. Hopefully, we're going to be able to realize them soon, but I think that approach of getting many ideas, putting them on the table, talking about how to resolve these issues from different perspectives, I think that's really the way to go. So I want to thank you again, Councilwoman Darby, for your leadership on this issue.
All right, thank you. I would like to recognize Councilmember Kobe Owens, who has joined us virtually. Next, I want to, I think our Chief of Staff has a comment, followed by Councilmember Harley.
Yeah, yes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
For Councilmember Harley, the City of Lancaster business license fee is $35.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harley, followed by Councilmember Darby.
That's different than what he said. Yeah. You sure? But let me just make my comment. I too do want to thank our new L&I commissioner. I agree that he has jumped in, all in, being willing to work with council members and to do what is needed for us to reform the inspections and just the entire topic of housing and L&I and their role that they play as it relates to the topic. So I do want to thank our new commissioner. I saw him today. He was sharing with me in terms of the things that, he anticipates doing, and it's very exciting to know that we have an L&I commissioner that is all in and that is willing to work with council to move the needle forward as it relates to rental inspections. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember Darby.
Yes, no, I just wanted to add that with the help of Councilmember Cabrera, we have been working closely with Commissioner Papone. We even met with him today, so we're hoping that in a few months we'll be able to support him with any legislative needs. But no, I just wanted to make sure that I report out and that people know some of the work that we're doing, like behind scenes, like we'll go on visits and we're doing this, we're having internal meetings, and we don't have any legislation presented, but we are working on these issues. The administration has been completely on board with this issue with L&I reform, and I just want to say, like Commissioner Papone, Councilmember Cabrera, I'm looking forward to continuing to work with them on this.
All right, thank you. Does anyone from the public want to speak to this? All right, seeing no hands raised, is there anyone on Zoom? Megan Wilson, thank you for joining us.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Megan Wilson. I'm on the 3rd District. One thing I want to know about L&I is, are they planning to help renters more? Is the city with L&I planning to help renters more when it comes to problems that we are put in when it comes to renting? We rent a place. We don't rent a place looking to come into a bed bug infested place or a place that's disgusting. And yet we're supposed to just live there because L&I doesn't want to come in because they're terrified that they're going to take a bed bug to someone else's home. What about us that live with that? What about our children that are being torn up? What about that shit? And when is it going to be protecting us as citizens, as the renters that are paying thousands of dollars a month just to live in a place like that? Thank you. That's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else virtual? No? Okay, anyone else from the public here? Councilmember Darby, any final comments?
No, thank you. I just want to acknowledge the last public commenter and let you know that I know that City Council, we have been, I know Councilmember Willauer came on the trip, Councilmember Cabrera, myself, we are like pushing for L&I, and I know our new commissioner to make sure that families, renters who are in those situations, that we're able to hold landlords accountable. So we want to hold those bad actors, and we want to make sure that you have somewhere to live. So I wish that I could like fix it overnight. But I know that within my willpower and my voice that I'm going to continue to push for L&I reform to happen so that we all people in our city. So I just wanted to know that you're acknowledged and the work is happening. So that's it.
All right, thank you. WITN, is there anyone named Audrey who wishes to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm not. I want to speak at the right time. I don't want to speak on the L&I. I just need a moment to speak on something with my council member, with my council person. So just let me know when. I just was trying to get in.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your council representative?
Kobe.
Councilmember Owens. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything on today's agenda that you want to speak to
here
him?
this evening, but you can let me know when I can speak.
Okay. Is there something specific on today's agenda that you want to speak to him about?
Not necessarily about on the agenda. He's our council person, and since he's been voted in, I have not seen or heard from him. I have received a letter from some warranty company that have been paying for 20 years using the city letterhead. And I have texted Kobe this because they seem to be fraud. He has not responded. Each call I make, he's not responding. He's not active in the community. So I want to know, why did he run for city council?
Okay. If you don't mind, if you don't mind, you can leave your number, your contact number on the Zoom, and I'll make sure that he gets it. Is that okay?
It's fine, but then maybe you can answer the question, Mr. President, about this AWR that is using the city's letterhead. I'm sorry, I didn't see the agenda. I came in this evening because I heard that you're going to have a meeting, and I really have some issues, such as the this AWR water company that is ripping off the residents of Wilmington, stating that they're a warranty company, and they're using the city of Wilmington, and the city of Wilmington sent their information to me to protect my pipes. And they are not refunding, they're not covering anything. So I need to know if the city is aware that AWR is using the city's letterhead and claiming that they're covering the pipes underground, and they're not doing so. They're just taking your money.
Okay. I do appreciate your concern, but unfortunately, we can't have a conversation because it's not on the agenda. But I will make
Okay.
sure that we give you a follow up so we can address your concerns. I believe Councilmember Owens does have his hand raised. Councilmember Owens.
Yes, I did get your text message at 4:22 today, and I do intend to respond to it. I just was prepared
No.
for this meeting.
That's not the text message. Text message I'm talking about, I sent it to you months ago. I just sent you a text this evening asking something,
I
but
apologize.
no.
I don't see any other text, but my number is 302-650-5191.
I have your number. and I did send a text. But anyway, thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, all right, thank you. Next, we're going to have a discussion on the Landlord Engagement Lab.
Yes. And I think Councilmember Harley
Councilmember
had her
Harley,
hand up.
did you have a?
Oh, I just wanted to just add one comment that I did ask about the business registration fee. And our Chief of Staff Simmons did give me the right amount, but it was the business rental property license fee was what I was asking, what I should have asked about, which is $250 per unit. And again,
2 years.
hold on.
Oh, sorry.
200 for the property classes. So either way, my whole point is that I do believe that we should have reform. And the only point that I was making is that fiscal does matter in terms of how we can move forward. And that's not to say that we are not able to figure out how we can find our money, but again, it does matter. And it's $250 per unit for the rental license fee. That's all I needed to say. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Councilmember Darby?
Yeah, so this is for the Landlord Engagement Lab. So last term, let me bring up my notes here. So first I'm gonna talk about the Landlord Engagement Lab. So it was a program that the city of Wilmington was selected to be in. So it was through the National League, the National Leagues of Cities. So we applied back in 2022 and we were selected. So we worked with the National League of Cities and Stanford Legal Design Lab. And this Landlord Engagement Lab focused on engaging mom and pop landlords, so those managing 20 or fewer residential units, to come up with collaborative, to collaboratively address housing instability and eviction prevention. So for about a year, we met. We came up with pieces of policies and legislations to figure out how do we help landlords in our city, particularly small landlords, not the big ones, but the small landlords in our city. How do we provide them with resources? How do we prevent evictions? And I wanted to share some of the pieces of legislation that we did agree with in that Landlord Engagement Lab. So on the Landlord Engagement Lab, we had landlords, we had a renter, we had a property manager, we had regular residents who just cared. Like, I don't know if you were on that one, Councilmember Willauer. You were on Landlord Engagement Lab?
Yes.
Okay, you were on that one too. Yeah, so we had residents in the community. So it was a very engaged, different, diverse in regards to occupation type of Landlord Engagement Lab. And we listened. We listened to the landlords, we listened to the renters, we listened to property managers, and we said, how can we help small landlords in our city? So I shared a policy priority that I have here today, and I'm just going to name at least the 5 that we have listed here that we came up with in this lab. One was creating an online rental registry. So this will allow and create a system for landlords to register rental properties online. If we make the process easier for landlords to register their properties, I think more would do it, and it will be less of a hassle and headache to come up to the city council building, try to come during work hours, which is pretty much like 8 to 4, 9 to 5, right? And most people are working, have other things going on. So creating an online rental registry will definitely be something that's very functional for renters to be able to look at whether or not a unit is licensed, a way for landlords to keep track of their license, and it just makes it streamlines the process. So there are so many examples of other cities that does this type of work with online rental registries. And this is something that our Commissioner Papone says that he's interested in doing. So this go round, like my last term, I didn't have a lot of support from the administration, but this term, as I'm talking to the administration and the commissioner, they're like, yes, we need that. We want to be able to have landlords register easily. We want to be able to have it easier for renters to be able to look up if a property is a licensed rental property before they rent with that person, because all landlords should have a license to rent out their property because it's a business. The second thing was creating incentives for landlords to sign up for this program. So for creating incentives for landlords to register their properties with the city, so we came up with different examples, right? We want, because the point of it is we want to increase registration rates and make them feel good about signing up with the database. So we talked about parking passes, reduction in charges to register rentals, put on a city website as a registered landlord. So we talked about different and came up with different incentives that we can give to landlords if they join this rental registry. So we're hoping that, or even trash. I think that was like another one, because I know if you have over a certain amount of properties, the city won't pick up your trash anymore. But if you register your property, maybe trash is an incentive that the city will pick up. So we came up with a list of incentives for landlords to sign up to just simply register their property. The third piece was provide landlord education on available programs and resources. I think a lot of times education, before we penalize people, education is really important. So creating materials, a webpage, events, trainings to tell landlords about available programs and resources and how to be a landlord. And then we also talked about creating a loan or grant program for landlords to address code violations. So again, the city of Lancaster, when we went on that visit, they actually have a repair program, but small landlords, income qualified landlords, are able to qualify to get that loan/grant to be able to address any code violations on their home. So the city of Lancaster, not just alone, they didn't reform L&I. They also have incentives for landlords to help them fix up their property, because the real main goal here is like, we want to keep people in their homes. We want to prevent evictions. We want landlords to be business owners in our city. We want them to be engaged. We want them in our city, but we want them to do the right thing and to provide affordable and safe housing. And then the other one is to register unlicensed rental properties. So giving them like a 6-month amnesty period for unlicensed landlords to get rental license. So there is a fee currently right now if you do not have a rental license and you're operating as a landlord. However, this would give 6 months for landlords to get into compliance on our online rental registry program, and then also offering incentives, offering education, and offering a loan or a grant to help them fix up their properties. So in the Landlord Engagement Lab, we came up with these 5 policies that we wanted to push forward. I didn't get a lot of support in my last term, but I'm looking to present these and get these drafted soon so that we can assist small mom and pop landlords in the city of Wilmington. So we hear you. We hear you about L&I. We hear you about especially small mom and pop landlords needing assistance, needing education, and it's just making the process more efficient and making it simple. So that's what we're looking to do with the Landlord Engagement Lab. I would love to continue the Landlord Engagement Lab. They did give us some funding to be able to run the Landlord Engagement Lab. And then we were able to have these meetings, but I'm looking forward to maybe even continuing that on a city level, to always have like an advisory landlord group where we can go to work with them on these particular things, because landlords are needed in our city, but they're needed if they're providing affordable and safe housing and if they want to do things like that. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from council have any questions or comments? Anyone from Councilmember Harley?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Darby. So, yes, these are some very good incentives and ideals from what you know right now. Commissioner Pabon, has he shared in terms of, does he see any barriers, or is this something that he can work with us to move forward?
Yes, so I did share this with our commissioner. So he was definitely on board with the online registry. He was like, we need that. I want to make it easy for people to come in here. He was very supportive. He doesn't believe everything has to be punitive. Like, how do we get landlords into the fold? How do we make it easier to get them into the fold of doing the right thing to provide safe housing for people and to be able to have their business license? So he is on board, Commissioner Pabon, with doing things like this. So the administration and Pabon were very supportive and open to this.
Yes, Councilmember Harvey.
Yeah, my follow-up is that's great. I'm glad to hear that he's on board with it, and whatever wins that we can get, maybe we can consider carving out, allowing them to register online, if that is a win that we can get right away, because I
Yes.
definitely feel as though this would be beneficial to the landlords. It's the right thing to do. And like you said, they're paying for license, and this is something that at least they can feel as though it's a return on their investment. So I think that's a great idea. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilmember Willauer?
Thank you, Mr. President. So yeah, it's great to have this list of policies that, or policy ideas that, were created with the input from landlords and also from renters. And it's great to have this list and have it put together like this, so we have something that we can talk about with the administration and with each other. And again, I just really appreciate you bringing this to council, the committee of the whole. I think a lot of people know that the council doesn't have the chance to have conversations with more than like 2 people at once or something like that because of freedom of information requirements. So these committees of the whole are the time when we get a chance to share this kind of information in larger groups and have a discussion. So it's great that you put all of this down and put it in front of us and then talk about kind of the path forward and how we can plug in. And I hope residents and landlords also see the opportunity to plug in so that we can, we don't just talk about these ideas. We've wanted an online registry for a while, and it, just getting it over the finish line, I think, is really important. And I want to say, Councilwoman Darby and everybody that you're working with, including the administration and other council members, that we do these things. We take them seriously and we get them done. So thanks again.
Thank you. I believe online we have Megan Wilson.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. The question that I have about this, the landlord incentive thing, is that isn't their investment, like, isn't there, why should they be getting like a fund to do repairs or a thing to do repairs on their property if they're getting rent? Isn't that their investment? Isn't that their money to repair their properties? I mean, rent nowadays it's really high. So if they're getting that much every month, I don't understand why they would need to have any kind of assistance with that, because they're taking more than half of our income monthly for rent. More than 75% on some of us.
All right, thank you. Anyone from the public in chambers, in the committee room? Councilmember Darby?
Yes. So this would be for small mom and pop landlords. I'm not interested in helping big landlords either. So I want that to be known. But they're all small mom and pop landlords who own a few properties. They would have to be income-based qualified. So there is a income to it. So it won't be someone who's has 30 properties and they are their excessive rent charges. Like it won't be those landlords. It will be the small mom and pop landlords who will be assisting. And then we also have to understand the dynamics of the city we live in. Redlining still exists. We live in a predominantly Black and brown low income neighborhood. Redlining still exists. So access to loans and resources for certain people is still are just not the same. So understanding that and providing those small little incentives for those small landlords, I think are still important. But I'm always open to conversations about what that looks like with the community and my constituents. So, and also, all of this is tied to L&I reform. I know that was like the first topic, but once we are able to get landlords registered, then we're able to track them for inspections to happen, to hold them accountable, to make sure that they're providing safe housing for residents. Because I know that is like a issue with affordability right now, and even finding safe housing in the city of Wilmington. It's hard to find a house that's affordable without mold or a broken HVAC system, right? So I get it and I understand, but I also have to find a balance to, like, I don't want to be super punitive on landlords, but I also want to provide assistance to the landlords who need it. And then I'm going to skip this legislation and go to the other one first. Yeah.
All right, thank you. At this time, we are not going to have a discussion on the ordinance, but we're going to go to the discussion on subcommittees. Councilmember Darby?
Yeah, so the subcommittee legislation, this one is about, so it will be called the Reintegration Subcommittee. It will serve as a subcommittee of CDUB. This subcommittee on CDUB will then address halfway houses and groups home for registered sex offenders. So I get a lot of calls from my constituents throughout the city of Wilmington who are concerned about public safety, offender rehabilitation, and community well-being. So I would love to continue this conversation in a subcommittee to make community members feel involved in that process, to have that conversation, and to find a balance between, because I also believe, like, that could be a tough topic, right? But I also believe in rehabilitation for all people, right? But then also, how do I find a balance to also protecting my community and also making people feel safe in their neighborhood? So we also know there are already some restrictions put in place, but I'm getting a lot of calls about not being notified, or where they're located, or how many, and those conversations are not knowing that, all of a sudden 2 weeks later there's a home next to you and you didn't even know that there was going to be one there. There was no notification that this sex offender house was being opened up right next door to you, right? So I want to be able to bring all the experts into the room and sit down and have a conversation and say, how do we find the balance between rehabilitation for this particular population, but also making sure people feel safe and that they are notified. So that's what this subcommittee is about.
All right, thank you.
And it will be on the next city council meeting, but I also wanted to make sure my council colleagues, if they had any questions or comments, that they're able to make it here. So
Thank you. Any questions from council members? Any questions from the public? Is there anyone virtual? No? Okay. All right, thank you.
before we go to referendums, can I do the Wilmington Art Commission, then referendum?
Yes.
Okay.
Now we're going to have a discussion on the Wilmington Arts Commission.
Oh, sorry.
We might have one public speaker who's virtual.
Good evening. Can you hear
Jacqueline
me?
Flowers.
Hi, this is Jacqueline Flowers from District 8. I know we just skipped over the rent stabilization ordinance, so I just wanted to confirm that we will not be talking about it tonight.
That's correct.
No, we are talking
We are
about
talking
it.
about?
Yeah, I'm just moving it around.
Oh, okay. Yes, we are going to discuss it, but later in the meeting.
Okay, do you know when you're going to be moving it to?
The referendum one, I don't know, at the referendum.
Did
I
you?
don't know, 15 minutes?
Probably about 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you. Megan Wilson. Megan Wilson.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to get councilwoman member number for Shanae. I wanted to talk to her about what she just was speaking on, the rehabilitation homes for offenders and stuff.
Sure, you can speak to it now.
I would like to speak with her personally.
Oh,
'cause
privately.
it's-
Okay. All right. Are you WITN? Is the public able to leave their contact information virtually? Okay. So, ma'am, you can leave your contact information, and then we will get it. We will make sure that Councilwoman Darby
Where do I leave it?
in the chat. Someone's going
In
to
the
send you a link.
webinar chat?
Someone's going to send you a link right now, and you can send it. You can leave your contact information there in the
Send me a
next few
link.
moments.
Where to? The webinar chat?
She's going to put, yes, it's going to be placed in the chat.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Darby?
Yeah, so that was it for the subcommittees one. I can do the one, we already introduced the Wilmington
Yes.
Arts Commission. We did, yes, we did. So this ordinance is to reestablish the Wilmington Arts and Culture Commission. This conversation, I was reached out to by some local artists, and they were like, they want to be more involved with the city's arts and culture affairs and the cultural affairs department. So I started to look into like what other cities do. And they have like commissions, and their local community works with the city in regards to the arts and culture that our city presents. Then I found out that it already existed in our code. And then I was like, okay, so let me learn more about it. So I learned more about it and learned that it's been defunct since like its very existence and never had any members on it. So it already exists. So this piece of legislation will revitalize the Wilmington Arts and Culture Commission, right? So this will be on for first and second reading on the June 5th City Council. I'm having a town hall on, I don't even know when I'm having a town hall. I think it's June 10th. Yeah, I don't know, yeah. Yeah, so I'm having a town hall about this piece of legislation on June 10th. It's going to be 5:30 to 8 at the Chris White Art Gallery, 701 North Shipley Street. So if you go on our website or if you contact me, I can give you more information. But I really believe that as we talk about economic development, we talk about community development in our city, we have to talk about how local artists, how arts and culture plays a role in that, and making sure that everyone feels included in that conversation. So this piece of legislation just addresses that. It revitalizes it. I added community gardens to it. I added some responsibilities of the commission, the composition of it. So it's a really simple piece of legislation. It also talks about City Fest. So, City Fest is a nonprofit that was created by the city government to do culture and arts programming. So it kind of infuses the two together so that they're working and communicating with each other so that we are promoting more local artists, more culturally today relevant art and culture type of programming. So I'm really looking forward to that and for us to have the town hall to have more conversation. But I didn't know if our city council had any comments or questions.
Hands raised. Anyone from the public have any comments or questions? No? Okay. All right, no comments.
No comments. So the discussion on the Utility Citizens Advisory Board, I'm not doing that one.
Okay.
And then the last one before rent stabilization would be the referendum one. And I know Kendra is helping me with that one. So I can give a little bit background about referendums. So I was working on a piece of legislation last year about residency. I was trying to maintain residency for the city of Wilmington, the little bit of 5 years that we did have. Trying to maintain it because I really believe that if you work for our city, especially in public safety, you should live amongst the people that you're serving and that you are paying your salary. So in that, I learned that back in the 90s, there was a community vote about residency. And I was like, how did that happen? When did that happen? Why am I just finding out about this? So there was a referendum vote about residency in the 90s, and they asked the community, should residency exist for employees? And majority of the community said yes. They believe that people who work for the city should live in the city. Makes sense to me. So in that, I was just like, so how do I do this again a few decades later? So I know Kendra is going to present on how we're going to, and I want to make sure that City Council understands that we have a tool to have the community vote on piece of legislation. So for rent stabilization, I can put that in a referendum, and then the community can come out and vote if they want rent stabilization or not. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Kendra.
Okay, thank you. And if you could pull up the PowerPoint, WITN. So as they're doing that, to Councilwoman Darby's point, referendums are basically just a direct vote of the residents who are eligible to vote within a community and allows for direct participation in the governance process, especially when it comes to issues where you want to make sure that the public attitudes toward a particular issue are taken into account. So I will continue. Hopefully they get it up. Okay, and could you go to slide 4, please? So one important part of referendums are typically in the state, in certain states, a direct vote on charter amendments. Charter amendments are important because a charter is essentially the constitution for a city government. It's the founding document, and it requires at the moment state authorization to be able to make adaptations. And so the charter amendments, amending the charter, obviously since the founding of the city, things change, context change. So making amendments to the charter allows the city to be able to keep up with the needs of the city, to be able to adjust their structures and processes to what the population needs in today's time. Go forward, please. So in the same vein, Wilmington City Charter establishes the structure, legislative, and administrative framework for the local governance structure. So even things like the time and the manner of having council meetings are within the charter. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. So the city's legislative powers come from the city charter. It grants Wilmington the legislative and administrative powers to carry out its functions, and also gives the city authority to now enact ordinances that are necessary to execute both the express and the implied powers of the council and the city of Wilmington at large. Next slide, please. So within the Delaware Code in Chapter 22, there is subsection 802, there is a reference to referendums. It empowers municipal corporations in the state of Delaware, including Wilmington, to amend their charters. This statute establishes the legal framework necessary for local government to evolve and adapt through amendments, reflecting the changing needs of the community. Next slide, please. So also in Chapter 2, subsection 811, municipalities are also authorized to create charter commissions to evaluate amendments to the charter. So this referendum process that Councilwoman Darby is proposing would clarify the process, because within the state code, the logistics of referendums are not as clear as they could be. So the ordinance proposes two methods to be able to make amendments to the city's charter. One method would be a city council resolution, which I will go into more detail. Oh, I'm sorry. Could you go to slide 13, please? There. Thank you. The two methods would be either a city council initiated resolution or a public petition for a charter commission. Next slide, please. So with the city council initiated resolution process, at least 3/4 of the council would have to vote for a charter amendment by adopting a resolution. This approach ensures that the majority of council, or the plurality of council, is in agreement with these changes. Next slide, please. It also has a public petition process. The requirements would be that at least 10% of Wilmington's qualified voters would be able to sign a petition to have a charter commission. The city clerk would verify these signatures within 30 days. I will go more in detail with that later in the presentation. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. So the election process for a charter commission, once the signatures are verified by the city clerk, city council would set an election date for the charter commission, occurring no sooner than 60 days after the petition has been validated. Next slide, please. So the responsibilities of this charter commission, once they are elected, would be to propose amendments, hold public hearings, and facilitate a ballot process for those proposed changes. The object is to ensure that there's transparency throughout the process, and also that they adhere to the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, guidelines. Next slide, please. So to schedule a referendum, the proposed ordinance would require that a referendum be scheduled no fewer than 90 days and no more than 180 days after a charter amendment was approved. In the case of a scheduled municipal election, the referendum would happen concurrently to optimize voter turnout, and I'm sure also for the efficient use of resources. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And so Councilwoman Darby may want to chime in on some of these, but the general cost estimates for having a referendum from her consultation with people who have the capacity to do this would be about $75 per machine, and this would include the volunteer training. And this is assuming about 2 machines per district to have a referendum vote, approximately about $1,000 to rent a room in each district where the voting machines would be held, and possibly about $2,000 to $3,000 to market and make sure that there's constituent outreach regarding the referendum vote. So referendums, next slide please, are not used frequently in the state of Delaware, but they are used in certain cases, particularly when it comes to financial matters. So 2 of the most recent examples that I found in my research were the city of Newark, Delaware. They periodically hold referendums on issues including bond expenditures and indebtedness matters. The city of Milford has also recently held a referendum to approve funding for an updated water infrastructure, even though there was not going to be necessarily a fiscal impact, like increasing the cost of water. They did hold a referendum vote to get public opinion on the matter. So that is just a general overview of referendums and the ordinance proposal. If you have any questions.
Councilmember Darby.
I'm ready to use a referendum. I don't know about y'all, but yeah, so in this, like in the grand scheme of money, it did not, I thought it was going to be way more. Well, I thought it was going to cost us way more than what I was able to collect. I think it's something that is doable. It is a tool in our toolbox that city council should use. We could use it for things like rent stabilization. We can use it for creating subcommittees. We can create it for, do you want the Wilmington Arts Commission to be defunct or not, right? We can ask our community so many other things so that they can vote. And other cities and states do this, like the city or the state of New Jersey, they did it. That's how they legalized marijuana. Like conversations across the country are happening where they're using referendum votes and getting the community's input and then making it law via through cities and states. So I don't know if any of my council colleagues has any questions or comments about this tool, but we have permission by the state to do it. We just have to put it in our code and tighten up the process.
Thank you, Councilmember Willauer.
Thank you, Council President. So I'm just trying to make sure I understand. There's two different ways that a referendum can happen. One is city council passes it in, I guess, 3/4. So 3/4 of 13 has to support it. And then the other way is that there would be 10%, like 7,000 signatures.
Yes, of the, I'm not exactly sure about the number right now of eligible voters, but yes, 10% of eligible Wilmington voters could sign a petition, and then those would be validated by the city clerk.
And then it would be a referendum and the city would run a vote
It
on
would
it?
be a charter commission to review the charter and make proposals on amendments.
So
Councilmember Harley?
Are you finished, Councilmember Bullard?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. This is good information. I guess my question is this, like, how does this, I'm just seeing this, so I got a few questions, and I'm not going to ask all of them right now, but how does this play in with, for an example, when we have vacancies on council, will we be able to use this process versus the one that we've been using, you know, to make that process more democratic? So is this, I don't know, I'm not sure how this works with the state's charter versus the city's charter, and are there certain items that we can use this process on versus others?
So I would say that this is the two pathways that I talked about are for having a charter commission, and they review charter amendments and make proposals for the referendum. I would say for Councilwoman Darby and her long-term goals or proposal for things like changing certain things about how council operates in the short term or like individual basis would be a conversation. So I'll defer to you, Councilwoman Darby, on that one.
You know, I think that's a great question to ask if we can use it for our elections when there are vacancies, for our appointmentships when there are vacancies, if we can just have the community do a vote. So I think that's a conversation we have to explore. But from my understanding and reading it, it didn't include elections. But we can, like elections to put someone into a seat included more like ordinances and like laws, like things that would change the code. But I think that's a great way, maybe we could in the future use this for appointmentships. So
I would have to check more into it, but I would say to the extent, I guess, that those things are outlined in the charter, it might be that the commission would make proposals for amendments to those processes for a vote.
And the other one that comes to mind is annexation, which we know that is part of the reason why we're not able to expand our borders to get more revenue. And so, hey, I mean, there are some, you know, serious, I think, decisions that, you know, we have to make today that if we had a tool or a process that we could use, that would be great. Because again, like I said, that topic comes up all the time in terms of how we're able to generate more revenue. And as it relates to annexation, we're not able to do it without getting the DGA to approve it. So that's why I said I know I have quite a few questions, so I'll limit it to these two, and I'll follow up with the councilwoman. Thank
I
you.
have a question, couple questions. How would council, I'm not sure if you already touched on this, but how would council decide what goes to a referendum versus what doesn't?
So that would have to be a conversation among council. Do you mean the council initiated
Right. So
resolution?
if there would have to be like a majority vote that we're not going to
Yes.
vote on. We're going to send it to a referendum.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other?
Does anyone from the public have any questions or comments? Christina Kay. Marshall Bassanite.
Yeah, thank you. I'm President. I just want to mention too, I believe there's going to be legislation that will codify this process in the codes. I believe this was the intent, was just to have discussion. So I just wanted to share that. I wasn't for sure if Councilwoman Darby had mentioned about that, but I just want to mention that for the record.
Okay, thank you. Christina Kay.
Sorry about that. My screen froze. Good evening, Council President, members of the committee at whole. My name is Christina Kelly, and I'm here tonight to express my deep appreciation and admiration for Councilwoman Shanae Darby. From the moment she was elected, Councilwoman Darby has made it clear that her priority is the people, especially the communities that have too often been overlooked or dismissed by those in power. Time and again, she has shown what it means to lead with integrity, courage, and an unshakable commitment to justice, whether it's advocating for police accountability, hard, fighting for equitable housing, hard, or simply asking the hard questions that others would rather ignore. Councilwoman Darby has remained rooted in the needs and concerns of her constituents. And for that, we are grateful. Let's be honest, Councilwoman Darby has not had an easy path. She's been met with resistance, condensation, and outright obstruction, not just from the administration, but also from some of her own colleagues on this very council. Super disheartening. Yet still she shows up. Still she speaks truth to power. Still she holds the line for the people who put her there. That kind of leadership isn't easy, and it certainly isn't celebrated often, but it is necessary. It's necessary for building a city government that actually works for all of us and not just a select few. So tonight, I wanted to take a chance just to say thank you, Councilwoman Darby. Thank you for standing tall, for staying true, and for reminding all of us what real representation looks like. Please know that your efforts do not go unnoticed, and you are not alone. We see you, we support you, we are here with you, and we have your back. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you. Any other questions from anyone in the public? Anyone on council? Councilwoman Darby?
Yeah, so no, thank you for your kind words, Christina. And thank you to my community. I know that most people are here for rent stabilization in this conversation. So I don't know if you're introducing that yet.
Sure, yes, at this time we can have a discussion on the rent stabilization. Councilmember Darby.
I have a presentation for this. So I'm going to talk about the legislation and then open it up to my council colleagues and to the community to have conversations about rent stabilization. So as the presentation is coming up, I do want to give a little bit of background. So rent stabilization has been a piece of legislation I've been working on since last term in regards to protecting renters. So there are units that rents are being excessively increased to the point where families are being pushed out and can't afford it, which we know the point of count that happens every year where we count unhoused people. It is increasing every year. We're seeing high rates of eviction. I'm really looking to find ways, several ways, multiple policies to solve our issue of housing supplies. We can go to the first slide, to the next slide, sorry. Really looking for ways to solve our housing crisis, which is three approaches, right? Increasing our housing supply, we have to do that. Not just increasing housing supplies for high-end apartments, increasing housing supplies is specifically for affordable, because we can't say we haven't been increasing housing in the city of Wilmington, right? We have been, but it has not been affordable housing. We need to provide more subsidies, and we need to provide stability for renters. We have to be able to do those three approaches for our housing crisis that we're having here in the city of Wilmington. And again, there's no one silver bullet to this issue. But there are so many parts, but that in this that we need to address. We can go to the next slide. So this slide talks about Wilmington must invest in building more housing. However, that alone will not solve the housing crisis, right? So they're going to say, build more affordable housing, build more affordable housing. The conversation is more complicated than that. We need to build more. Building more units is supposed to free up older housing for low-income residents, but it takes too long to be effective. Most new units being built are not affordable. The city of Wilmington is incentivized in building without requiring affordability, which is inclusionary zoning, which is another piece of legislation that I have coming up soon. So we cannot say that we're not investing in housing in the city of Wilmington. We are. We're just not investing in affordable housing. It's just not enough, and it takes too long. So we can go to the next slide. So other policies that I'm working on, because I understand rent stabilization cannot be the only thing that the city of Wilmington is working on, along with the L&I reform, along with the landlord engagement lab, along with the other work that is happening. It all has to happen together. Like, these conversations can't be, oh, we have to do this first, that. It all has to be happening right now, and city council, we're working on that. So I have another piece of legislation that's establishing a housing trust. So a housing trust is a fund that you put money into so you can find revenue in different ways. So some cities do grants. They get state funding, city funding, county council funding, but you can also get funding from housing development happening in the city. So I can say if you build 100 units, 30% of it has to be affordable, and then the other 70 units that you built, for each unit, you have to put $100 per unit you have to put in the housing trust. We can also have developers put money into the housing trust when they are doing development. So there's multiple ways to fund the housing trust. So what do you do with the housing trust once it's funded? You provide programming to the community that makes housing more affordable. So you can do more housing subsidies. You can develop more home repair programs. You can provide programs for small landlords to do repairs when they have violations. The sky is the limit with the housing trust, but it has to be the program that comes out of the housing trust that is funded has to be to create more housing, make housing more affordable for people, right? So the sky is the limit. There's nothing set in stone to what we do with our housing trust. The county has a housing trust. Other cities and states throughout the country has housing trust, so it's not a new concept. It's just another way for us to be able to address our housing crisis, and create more affordable housing in the city of Wilmington. The other component of that bill, it requires inclusionary zoning for new buildings in Wilmington. So when new buildings come up, as we see all the time, because there's no shortage of buildings happening, it's just not affordable, we see that a starting rate, like for efficiency, for a one-bedroom efficiency, is like $1,800. Not even realistic for an average family in the city of Wilmington, right? So we see those things happening. So it will require, if you're building 100 apartments, let's just go with the number 30%. 30% of those have to be different levels of affordability, not just low income, because working class people are impacted by this too. This is not just a low income issue. The issue that we're faced with in housing crisis, it is the working class too who are struggling. That middle income family who are also struggling along with our low income families. We can go to the next slide. So renters are struggling statewide, right? So overall in the state, 50% of renters face cost burden. Cost burden means a renter is paying more than 30% of their income on rent. There are 11,000 more cost-burdened renters compared to 2010. So it is increasing, right? Of Delaware's 400K homes, 29% were ALICE, meaning asset-limited, income-constrained, employed, earning more than the federal poverty level, but not enough to afford the basics where they live. So that's the conversation we just had. Working class people, this is not just a low income issue. This is not a poor poverty issue. This is a low income, middle class, working class issue in regards to renters who are struggling in the state of Delaware, specifically here in the city of Wilmington. And all of this data comes from the DSHA statewide housing needs assessment. And I was scrolling on Facebook, and I followed DSHA, and it was a young couple, and they had just bought a home. And in the caption, it specifically said they end up buying a home because their landlord was increasing their rent, right? They were being priced out of their home, and then they were forced to find other options, which I'm glad they were able to come together to become a homeowner, because those are success stories. But the mere fact of the reason why they had to do that is because of landlords excessively increasing their rent every year. We can go to the next slide. So rent stabilization policy limits how high landlords can raise rent each year. It does not stop them from raising rent. It just limits how much they can raise the rent. So instead of saying your rent is going to go up $200 next year, this says, that's a little high to do to someone. Maybe $50, $100 you can go up, but $200 is just excessive. So we're not telling landlords they can't increase their rent. We're telling them that you can't take advantage of people and increase it in a matter that just doesn't fit into what affordability looks like for the homes here in the city of Wilmington. So we can go to the next slide. Comparable cities with rent stabilization. So you see here we have 2 cities in California and 1 in New Jersey. So we have comparable city sizes. So you see about 60K, 90K, 25K around those areas. And they also have rent stabilization where there is where they cap annual rent increases. The one in California is no more than 5%, or CPI increases not to exceed 10% total. Another one is no more than 3% increase in rent allowed. This policy has been in place for many years with multiple amendments. And then the one in New Jersey that limits annual rent increases to no more than 6%, but they call it rent leveling, rent stabilization, rent leveling is what we're doing. Next slide. So rent stabilization limits rent increases. Landlords will still be able to increase their rent. However, it will be limited each year. Landlords could request in this piece of legislation to increase higher than the limit if they have increases to operating costs, repairs, or renovations. So let's say I wanted to get rid of all the lead in my home. I want to do lead abatement. I can submit all my documentations to the city to say, hey, I did these repairs to my unit. I need to increase my rent more than the 5% cap, right? And then they will go through a process which we had written out in the next ordinance, in the new ordinance that we have updated, what that process looks like. And we put time limits on like when the land use and planning department has to respond by, because we also don't want landlords to be waiting months to get response, right? So we're also putting in some guidelines there to make it fair for landlords who are doing the right thing, who are doing repairs, who are doing renovations, who are making their space livable, that they are able to increase higher if need be, but they do have to show proof that they did that. So we can go to the next one. Oh, they can also increase if insurance or property taxes increase. So yeah. When can landlords raise the rent higher than the limit? So there are exceptions to the limitations on rent increases under the following circumstances, as we just talked about: property taxes, insurance premiums, maintenance and operative expenses, renovations or improvements to their home, not ordinary repairs like we did paint. No, that's normal. But like if you needed a whole new HVAC system, your roof, right? Those type of things are like major renovations or improvements to your home that you'll be able to get an exception to in this piece of legislation. We can go to the next slide. So new buildings are exempted for the first 10 years. So if you're developing a new building, you are exempt from this. So new buildings would be exempt. So developers can recoup funds spent. So we do understand that developing New buildings can be costly, and we want you to be able to recoup that. After 10 years, those buildings will be rent stabilized, right? And it applies to buildings finished after the passage of the bill. So I wish I could retroactive back, but I could not. But going forward, if there's any buildings that are being built after the passage of this bill, they will be rent stabilized after 10 years. We can go to the next slide. So one thing I know that is important to this conversation is to continue it. We don't want rent stabilization to pass without continuing to talk about how do we look at housing stability in the city of Wilmington. So this legislation creates a subcommittee under CDUB. Well, we'll pull all the experts and different stakeholders in the room to have this conversation about the effectiveness of rent stabilization. We'll collect data, we'll collect and review data on housing costs, development. They will provide recommendations, right? They will provide recommendations to, I'm already doing the housing trust one, but the housing trust, we need inclusionary zoning. We need this type of zoning to happen, right? They'll come up with recommendation provided to city council and administration, and we'll work on those things together. So they'll also provide a recommendation on whether to sunset, extend, or amend rent stabilization provisions within 4 years of the enactment of this bill. So once we get this legislation passed in the next 4 years, this subcommittee will decide, did we get to the point where we have enough affordable housing for City of Wilmington residents? Did we implement different strategies? What did that look like? Are we in the process of that? What does the market look like at this point? I don't know what's going to happen in 4 years, but in 4 years, the subcommittee will be able to decide if we extend rent stabilization, sunset it, or do an amendment to this piece of legislation. So we can go to the next slide. So who's on this subcommittee? 2 members of City Council. We have a representative from the Department of Real Estate and Housing, 1 representative from the City Planning Department, 2 community-based housing advocates, 1 tenant representative, 1 affordable house developer, and 1 landlord representative. And we can go to the next slide. So the proposed changes to the legislation. So there were a few things. So after the last committee meeting, I had meetings with several landlords. I had meetings with housing advocates. I had meetings with city council people. All 12 of them got emails and text messages. And yeah, that's that. So all of them had an opportunity to read the legislation. All of them had an opportunity to reach out to me and have these conversations. And also the landlords, real estate agents, I had meetings with them and all the housing advocates. So the proposed changes, we're going to allow for rent increases. So at first it was 3%. We increased it to 5%. Or CPI, whichever is greater. At first it was lesser, right? Whichever was lower. We did make that change. We wanted to make a compromise with some of the landlords, city council members, like we heard them. We was like, okay, let's increase the amount and make it whichever is greater instead of whichever is lower. So we heard the conversations, we came back to the drawing board, and that's what we came up with. What does this change mean? Landlords will be able to increase rent by 5%, or CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, which is inflation. If inflation is higher than 5%, for example, 6%, the landlord would be allowed to increase rent by 6%. It provides more flexibility for landlords to increase rent, especially if inflation is higher from 1 year to another. So we can go to the next slide. So we're going to exempt rental units being rented for the first time ever. What does this change mean? Any rental units being rented for the first time ever would not be rent stabilized. However, it would be stabilized after the first year. This does not impact units that turn over from one tenant to another. Why make this change? Allows landlords to set base rents for units that have not been rented yet. So it allows that flexibility for landlords. We can go to the next slide. So next proposed change. add an additional landlord and real estate representative to the Housing Stability Subcommittee. So I know I named it before, and it didn't have these changes yet, but I did speak to a group of landlords, and they were like, "This is imbalanced." I was like, "I can see that." So we added an additional landlord and a real estate representative to the Housing Stability Subcommittee for a total of 2 landlords and 1 real estate rep. But we wanted to ensure landlords had a voice and realtor. We wanted to ensure landlord voice and the realtor voices are balanced on the Housing Stability Subcommittee. We can go to the next slide. That was it? No? I think that's the last page.
It is.
Alrighty, so those are the changes. I wanted to bring it to this committee of the whole to continue to have conversations with my council colleagues. Prior to this, I do want to say I reached out to all 12 of them and asked them to provide me with any feedback, any thoughts, and I have maybe 2 or 3 people who really engaged in the conversation on city council. So I would be very shocked tonight to hear anything from city council members because I have reached out in several ways, email and text, and had conversations with them. So I would be really shocked to hear anything different. So I'm gonna open it up, Council President.
All right, thank you. Anyone from council have any questions or comments? Councilmember Harley.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you, Councilmember Darby, for sharing the updates, but I just wanted to be on record that I definitely responded and also requested to be a part of your meetings. Also confirmed that I read the legislation and all the information that you sent out. So a number of times when we share information and we're very general, the community don't know. So I wanted to first put that on record. And my question is this, this composition of the subcommittee looks reasonable. Was there a recommendation for this composition, or you just thought about it in terms of what makes sense in terms of stakeholders?
Yes, so this legislation was, I'm sorry, I can respond.
Sure,
Yeah.
yes.
This legislation was shared with landlords, real estate agents, community advocates, so it really came from feedback from them. Like I really started off honestly with what I thought, and then it has changed so many times with feedback from the community in different groups.
Thank you.
Anyone else from council? Anyone from the public? Have any questions? You can come up to the podium, please, and please introduce yourself.
Hello, council. My name is Andre Green. I do have a couple questions, one of which was being in regards to, there is a slide in here about new buildings exempted for the first 10 years. And I don't see anywhere in here that this legislation addresses old housing stock that's in the city of Wilmington. So I'm one of the landlords who will buy an older property and fully renovate it and then make it affordable through a subsidy for affordable housing. This does not necessarily address the fact that because it's not a new building, it doesn't, the amount of the cost and expense as a landlord who's buying an older stock, when we're talking about properties that are 100 years old, they need excessive amounts of rehab to bring it to current standards, to make it livable with modern day amenities. The rent stabilization or the cap on the rent, there's a huge disparity that would happen where it would just honestly deter me from buying a property and then fixing it up, which then leads to other issues within the community. How can that be addressed inside of this proposed bill?
It can be addressed. I think that's a great point that you made.
Okay. And then the other thing in general, I understand that it is it's difficult for tenants to deal with the adjustment of the rent increase, and some landlords, just frankly abuse the ability that they can arbitrarily increase rent. But was this proposed as a sweeping legislative move to just sort of stop landlords from increasing rents not keeping in mind the increase of expenses, one being the trash, right? So if you own a property that has more than 4 units in the city of Wilmington, all of a sudden there's no more trash. That's a brand new expense that gets added to an owner that may not know going into it that they now need to cover trash, which those prices is privatized, so it's whatever they're going to charge, they're going to charge, and then you're kind of stuck footing a bill which may not work into the numbers for the property itself, which then increases the actual rent for the property. So is that something that the city's also looked at? Or I know you mentioned it earlier when you were talking about the registration for the bill.
Yeah. It's all in conversation. So I'm definitely open and I'm writing down the notes, but I don't have a specific answer for that now.
Okay.
But that's definitely a good point.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public have any comments or questions? Yes, please come forward. Gentleman in the back.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Sheraton, president of the Greater Wilmington Housing Providers and a resident of the 1st District. Certainly appreciate the modifications that are being made to the bill. I still think that it remains extraordinarily problematic. Rent control, rent stabilization, whatever we're going to call it today, has been studied, it's been tried. The results are pretty clear. It's simply bad policy. Marginally moderating bad policy doesn't suddenly make it into good policy. Landlords need flexibility to operate their businesses just like every other business in the city. Speaking for myself, we buy dilapidated properties at Sheriff's Hill. We'll buy mismanaged properties. If I buy a property that someone is poorly managing and it was rented for $500, I can't take the risk of buying that property and then hoping the administration allows me to increase the rent to market levels. I understand there's a process before we can go to the administration, seek to have a higher increase, but it's not clear if we can do that before we purchase the property. What happens if the administration takes longer than 10 days? Is it automatically approved? Is it automatically disapproved? It's totally confusing. I think what we're trying to do here is solve a very large problem with a whole bunch of details with a very simple policy, which simply doesn't work. Our organization actually got to visit the Hope Center last week. We were doing a tour of the Hope Center, and the manager that was giving us the tour shared that they charge referring agencies $50 per night for their residents, but they are increasing that to $90 to cover their costs. I don't think anyone in this room would say the Hope Center is a predatory landlord that's putting profits over people. I think that you have to recognize that landlords have duties, we have expenses, and we need to be able to adjust our rents accordingly. I would highly recommend you guys explore methods to increase the housing supply in Wilmington, and we can do much better than this. I encourage you to vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions or public comment?
Public comment. Public comment. Public comment, questions. Yeah. Just an open conversation. Yes, ma'am. Oh.
My name is Cheyenne Miller, and I think just to make some clarifications about the bill, so I know questions are coming up about renovated properties, specifically the ones that are not brand new, built by like BPG or something like that, but like you're actually going into the community and maybe you're picking up a single family home and you're renovating that. My understanding of the legislation is that properties that have someone being rented for the first time wouldn't be rent stabilized at that point because they would be considering that's the first time ever that property would have had somebody in it, right? So like I go in, I'm a developer, I grab, 903 West 29th Street, I'm making this up, right? And I'm going to fix that property up and it's empty, right? Nobody's renting it yet. I fix it up so somebody can now rent it. My understanding from what was just written in here is that if it's being rented for the first time, like ever, that they would still be allowed to set that base rent at whatever they need to be able to recoup those costs. And I just want to make sure that that's clear, because it looks like that's what it says on slide.
You are correct.
New buildings. You see what I'm trying to tell you? Okay.
You are correct. I don't know what page it is, but that is
correct.
correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're being clear about it, because it says the first time ever, and then after that, it would be rent stabilized. So like if you needed to raise it to started at 1,500, after that, you would be at, if they're proposing 5%, you would be able to increase it 5% every year. If your taxes went up, if the cost to be able to provide trash services went up. Those are operating costs. My understanding with the existing bill language is that those operating costs could be taken to the city, and the city would review and say, hey, your operating costs went up higher. You can't just do 5%. You would have to do 7%, and we would approve that. Correct?
Correct.
In terms of that process. So if someone's operating costs went up, y'all, right? Because I think that happens a lot, is that we're hearing that operating costs are coming up, and so that's why landlords are increasing their rent, that they would be able to apply to the city so that they could get a higher than 5% increase, which would mean that the city would actually be able to know, and so would the renters, that there's going to actually be, one, a real cost increase on their side, and it would be communicated that, hey, if it's a repair or a renovation, that we know that that repair and renovation is actually going to happen, as opposed to just relying on one side. Because it sounds like there's going to be more communication between the tenant, hopefully the landlord, and the city, that repairs are actually happening, which sounds like it matches up a little bit with the discussion earlier with L&I and some of the public comment we heard about not having repairs. Like, is that accurate or?
That is accurate.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Also wanted to ask about the issue with making sure that we have like representation on this committee. My understanding is that like we changed this committee to make sure landlord voices are going to be heard more on it, meaning that when it comes down to that 4 years, I think it said that they'd have to relook at the bill. Like we'd have landlords, real estate developers, city council, everybody around the table to say, do we still need this, right?
That is correct.
Just want to make sure. Thanks.
All right, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deidre Shepard. About 6 members of this city council accepted campaign money from the corporate landlords who are completely against rent stabilization. And I will say that it makes it difficult to trust that you are actually voting for the benefit of the people you were elected to represent. Not because you received the campaign money, but because your votes on various legislations consistently reflects a more favorable outcome for those corporations. It is a pattern with some of these same council members to vote against their constituents on matters that negatively impact their constituents the most. In the past, City Council voted to endorse legislation that not only raised water bills for the residents, but put residents at risk for housing instability for non-payment, while the water bills for the corporate companies were waived and are even remained unpaid. Just last week, City Council endorsed tax legislation evidenced to be detrimental to city residents, reeking of intentional displacement and gentrification practices, impacting the most vulnerable elderly and working class residents. Despite the voiced concerns of constituents and the gut feelings expressed by city council members of the intentions and negative impact that legislation would have on the people, the same council members still chose to vote against their constituents, even after making constituents believe their vote would reflect their constituents' voiced concerns. This is a pattern with city council, not of responsible governance, but of moral turpitude. It is to my knowledge that many council members here today are actually supportive of rent stabilization, but are unwilling to confirm their yes vote under the premise of needing additional information. And I don't see a lot of those council members here today. Right now, there is a win-lose situation with the majority of the residents in this city losing. This proposed rent stabilization will change a win-lose to a win-win for both the renters, the rental residents, and the landlords. And I encourage council members to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a few people who are virtual, so I do want to let them have an opportunity to. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just also want to confirm that today is not a vote, that we're just having a discussion. So the vote was supposed to be June 5th, but I did get notice probably 2 days ago that it no longer will be on June 5th. I've been asking for a legitimate reason why, and I have not gotten that reason why as of now. Maybe I could check my email and it might be in there, but as of walking in here, I do not have a legitimate reason that makes sense to why the legislation is not posted on the agenda for next Thursday. So as of right now, it is not on next week's agenda. So it'll probably be on June 19th. Let me check. I believe June 19th, that city council, it seems like somehow it's getting pushed back. So I just wanted to confirm that with the community. And I've been on my end for the last 2 days asking for why, and I have not gotten my why yet.
Thank you. Online, we have Megan Wilson.
Hi, my name is Megan Wilson, and I have spoken here more than once, not because I like to relive my trauma, trust me, but for one, we need to stop listening to slumlords like Jeff Sheridan right there, because he's one that sits there and constantly rings up bills on you. But,
Ma'am, can you hear me?
yes,
Yes, please refrain from any derogatory remarks. Thank you.
okay, well, what else are they considered? I'm confused.
Please refrain from any derogatory remarks during your comment.
What do we use instead?
That's no names, please.
Okay, well, what the hell? I don't know. Anyway, I am not because I enjoy reliving my trauma, of course, but I've been through this for a long time, since I've been in Delaware, and it quite frankly is disgusting me that Chicago is better than Delaware. But someone needs to finally listen to us residents, us renters. I mean, I've lived in apartments with mold, leaks, bugs, rodents, and broken heat. Oh, mind you, pregnant for 9 months without a bathroom. Okay. And you know, you can't say that word, sorry, but you know, but I paid more and more each year just to stay in these places that were barely livable because I couldn't afford anywhere else. And not alone. I'm not alone. This is what so many of us are dealing with. Every time I speak, I hope it makes a difference, but it's hard not to feel like our voices don't matter. The matters in this room are the landlords. It seems like that's the voices that matter, are the landlords every single time when it comes to our congressmen and women. I mean, like I said, half of the ones that are telling us they're going to make us think they're going to say yes are not even here. You know, we just want to be heard. We want to be respected. We want y'all to think of us tenants and think about that, you know, there's no protection for us. Our lives matter. Our homes matter. Our children need our homes to protect them. And without homes, we can't. And the government comes in, tries to take your children if you can't have a house. You can't afford a house. I mean, come on now. You guys are corrupted. It's just wrong. Fix it. And stop with all the excuses.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Jacqueline Flowers.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Jacqueline Flowers, District 8. Good evening, members of City Council. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to speak out against the City of Wilmington Rent Stabilization Ordinance. My name is Jacqueline Flowers, and I will speak on behalf of myself and my husband tonight as he is away on military duty. I am a proud resident of the City of Wilmington. I also work in Wilmington at EDIS Construction, my family business. 2 years ago, my husband and I started our own rental business here in Wilmington. So please don't underestimate how much I want the City of Wilmington to thrive, as I absolutely love this community. I could take the time to share from all of the experts and data on why rent stabilization overwhelmingly does not work, but I thought it might be more impactful for you to hear from me firsthand on how this will be detrimental to our small rental business. We could not be prouder of our rental business and are happy to share that our original renters have renewed their lease every single year. Each year, we have increased the rent by under 3% and have accepted all update requests, most of which are cosmetic. This will no longer be the case if this rent ordinance passes. If you take away our rights as property owners to increase the rent if needed, we will be forced to max the increase each year and have to deny the cosmetic changes our renters look forward to. In turn, our renters may not be able to afford the rent and lose their home, and a wealthier renter will move in. Our home will not be as desirable to the community that takes pride in upkeep. And if an emergency happens, we will be forced to sell. You will lose a proud Wilmington business owner. This ordinance will also stop us from our plans to invest in our city by expanding our business in Wilmington, and we will look elsewhere. As far as the rebuttal that the emergency situations will be reviewed according to the ordinance, this is ridiculous. How will you tell me if our emergency is substantial enough when it's our constitutional right in the first place? In closing, this ordinance is a disaster for entrepreneurial small landlords like myself. I have made an investment in our city by living here and having 2 businesses here, not on accident, but because I want our city to thrive. This ordinance is a slap in the face that will have so many unintended consequences, like the ones I spoke about previously. Thank you very much for your time, and I respect all of you on City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next online, we have Christina Kay.
Good evening, Council President and members of the Committee at Whole. I urge City Council and the administration to stand firm in protecting rent stabilization and to stop taking advice from so-called business leaders whose public track records reveal massive lapses in judgment. We're talking about people who knowingly purchase property in a floodplain, ignore permitting rules to build oversized development, never open for business, and then flip their failures to the county for millions of dollars. These are not examples of sound business practices. These are cautionary tales, and they should absolutely not be guiding city policy, especially when it comes to something as critical as housing. Residents deserve stability, not schemes. Keep rent stabilization strong and keep self-serving advice from failed developers out of our housing policy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to anyone in council chambers. We do have a few more members online, but we're going to alternate just to be fair. Is there anyone? Yes, ma'am. Thank you for joining us, and please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Renee Spurl. I am a local landlord as well as a realtor. First, I want to start by thanking Councilwoman Darby for taking the time to meet with me and another small landlord and another realtor to discuss our concerns as well as our recommendations for the bill. We appreciate that she was willing to include a couple of the recommendations that we made into the bill. And to the compliment that she got earlier from the citizen, it's much due because you do put in a lot of work. And I also wanted to commend you as well. So I just want to start by saying that and saying thank you. The concern that I want to raise and why I'm here today is because even though you took some of our recommendations into consideration, I don't think it took the most substantive recommendations that we made and addressed the concerns that are most substantive concerns. We expressed concerns that as this bill currently stands, it's detrimental to the very stakeholders who provide the majority of the affordable housing in Wilmington, which are your small landlords. This bill, as it currently stands, hurts small landlords by locking us into artificially low rents because we choose to be nice to our tenants and not raise their rent year after year and give them exorbitant rent increases. We also expressed concerns about how this bill impacts property values for both investors as well as owner-occupants, because landlords who choose to sell their houses with low rents in them will have to sell them for low prices, and those low prices will now set the comps for the neighborhood. That will impact your owner-occupants as well as your investors. In the essence of time, I will only speak from my own personal experience as a small landlord. I currently own properties in the 1st District, the 5th District, as well as the 6th Districts. I've been a landlord in Wilmington for over 20 years, and many of my tenants stay with me long-term because I treat them well and I do not go up on their rent on a regular basis and raise their rent exorbitantly. I communicate with them, I listen to their needs, and I address all their repairs when they ask for them. I do this because I want to keep tenants long-term. I want to keep good tenants in my units, and I think most small landlords understand that that's the best business practice. We don't want to constantly turn over rental units constantly because it's an excessive cost, as I can say now that it's cost me double to turn over a rental unit than what it cost me 5 years ago. It's not good business practice, and a lot of small landlords do not do that. However, as a result of being nice to my tenants, and not increasing their rents on a regular basis, this bill will penalize landlords like me by locking us into the low rent rates that we currently have. And even after they move out, I won't be able to raise it to fair market rate. I've had tenants who have been with me for over 15 years. I am well below fair market rent right now. And if they move out, if this bill goes through, I will not be able to raise my rent to fair market value. I don't think that's fair, and I want to say that I'm not an anomaly here. There's several small landlords who do the same thing that I do. In the essence of time, while I understand that small landlords like me are not the intended targets of this bill, we will become the unintended victims of this bill, and so will our tenants if many of us start to terminate their leases and sell our homes to owner-occupants because we can no longer afford to be their landlords. If the city insists on passing this bill, I simply ask that you incorporate a few measures that will protect small landlords. Number one, exempting any dwelling units that was previously rented for less than HUD standards for fair market rent. And number two, exempt units that are being re-rented to new tenants so that landlords like me aren't locked into artificially low rent rates. The last thing I wanted to address is one of the questions that was asked about operating costs, and if we buy a dilapidated building, if there's already tenants in place and say they're renting for $500 or $600 a month, the new person will be locked into that rent, and that's the problem. And to go to the administration to ask them for an increase, the question that I have is, are we going to be guaranteed that rent increase if we can prove it, or do we have to cross our fingers and hope the administration will grant our rent increase? And if we have to cross our fingers and hope, that's not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, virtually, we have Aaron. Aaron and Tyrus. Aaron and
Sorry, this is Keandra McDowell actually. Sorry, my kids use my Zoom for school. Hello everybody, good evening. Thank you everyone for showing up and
can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
It's very hard to hear you. Can you please start from the beginning and please introduce yourself?
Can you hear me now?
It's very muffled.
What the heck? Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's much better. Thank you. Are you still with us? No. We will go to Brandon Fletcher.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Fletcher, and I'm here to speak in support of the rent stabilization ordinance. This council, as a committee of the whole, represents the full body of Wilmington's elected leadership. And today, you're being asked to decide whether this city will continue to allow unchecked displacement or whether it will finally put some guardrails on a rental market that's spiraling out of control. Given everything that's happening at the national level with Donald Trump and the Republicans stripping away Section 8 vouchers, taking away rental assistance, Wilmington has the opportunity to put a basic guardrail in place to protect tenants from unchecked rent hikes. Across Wilmington, rents have increased over 30% in just a few years. Meanwhile, wages have barely moved and families are spending more than half of their income just to stay housed. This is not sustainable. It's an eviction crisis that's leading to a homelessness crisis. The people you represent are not imagining this, they're living it, and they're organizing because they've had enough. This ordinance is modest, it is fair, and it is long overdue. It still allows for reasonable rent increases while preventing the kind of sudden spikes that are pushing long-term residents out of their homes and out of the city of Wilmington. Let's be clear. Rent stabilization is not an attack on landlords. It is a defense of tenants. It's a step toward a fairer housing system, one where profit is not put above people's right to live with stability and dignity. Other cities have shown that rent stabilization works. I mean, just look around. You can see it in New York, you can see it in San Francisco, Maryland. They have shown that rent stabilization prevents displacement, it reduces homelessness, and helps working families stay in their home. And so I'm encouraging the City Council to look at the research and evidence. A 2021 study by the Urban Institute found that rent stabilization, when paired with enforcement and tenant protections, keeps families in their homes without significantly reducing the availability of rental housing, despite the myths pushed by corporate landlords. And so I'm just encouraging you to support this legislation. In Wilmington and in Delaware, it's very clear that the balance of power has long favored landlords and developers, and renters are being treated as disposable, replaceable, and voiceless. Your constituents are paying attention. They may not be in the room today, but they're, teachers, they're nurses, they are working to be able to afford the rent in buildings and apartments across the city. Rent stabilization is not only a moral choice, it is data-driven, it's a common sense policy, and it's the bare minimum that Wilmington can be doing to make sure that the city is strong, safer, and more stable. I know tonight's not the vote, but when this gets to a vote, I encourage all the city council members to pass this ordinance and let it be known that Wilmington chose to lead, not to wait. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone in committee room who likes to speak? Sure, come on up. Please introduce yourself. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, good evening. Excuse me, sorry. My name is Anna Aviles. I'm a resident of City of Wilmington, and I know people have been talking about rent stabilization policies not working. I'm actually sitting here reading a report that has a lot of data that talks about how it actually does help. So I'm just going to pull a few excerpts from this. One is that when renters thrive, they lift up their communities. Stable, affordable housing offers far-reaching and long-term benefits that ripple across society. It boosts local economies, it improves health, educational attainment, and increases environmental sustainability. So for example, housing instability can make it challenging to find and keep employment. And people who experience eviction, for example, are up to 22% more likely to be laid off, even if they've already had a stable employment history. Displacement and the negative health impacts of housing instability lead to absenteeism, reduced productivity, and higher turnover. And this is significant cost for employers. Unaffordable rents also hamper firms from attracting or retaining employees. Right now, we've been talking to a lot of different people. We have folks that are making $60,000 to $80,000, and they are moving out of the city of Wilmington because they can no longer afford to stay here. So if you all are talking about attracting people and keeping them here, we need to do something to help slow down the rise of rents. It can also improve, rent-burdened families suffer worse health outcomes. So we can actually help people stay healthy because they have to make decisions about, do I pay my rent or do I buy nutritious food, medicine, and healthcare? When low-income families pay rents that they can afford, they're able to spend 4 times 4 times as much on healthcare and 50% more on food compared to severely cost-burdened peers. It makes them more likely to get healthcare and necessary medication. So rent stabilization also helps protect domestic violence survivors, since affordable independent housing is a decisive factor in helping women leave abusive situations, recover from post-traumatic stress disorder, and avoid re-victimization and homelessness. Finally, I'll say that it also increases educational outcomes for young people. Children who move frequently have more absences, lower likelihood of finishing school, lower test scores, and educational delays. Every time a student moves, they lose an estimated 3 to 6 months of education, which results in delayed literacy and skills. I could go on, but I know my time is almost out. So I just want to say that the costs of not stabilizing rents far outweigh those that help keep them cool. I also want to say that I'm very upset to hear about this issue with the agenda, and I hope that City Council will push to have rent stabilization on the June 5th agenda, because a lot of people have been talking about it and they want to come and share their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, virtually, we have Tony Dunn.
Thank you. Thank the committee for allowing me to speak. I think rentalization is a good program for us, and the only reason I believe that so many homeowners and renters, people who are renting to low-income people, is greed. And their greed is misguiding them from knowing what is needed in certain communities in certain areas. And I'm a property manager in my district, and we try very hard to keep the rent down so it wouldn't bother us as small renters that have 1 or 2 units. And it is helpful. It's going to be helpful to poor people. It seems like anything that City Council tries to do to uplift the communities that are struggling, that is always a problem. And that problem is only greed. And that greed misguides all the people who says that they're going to lose money, they're not going to be able to renovate when people move out. That's malarkey. Everybody's going to still be able to take care of their properties, and they're going to be able to do what's needed. It's just that they want more and more and more from people. You cannot get a mushroom out of a turnip. And if you continue to drive these costs of rent up, people are going to be homeless. So I commend City Council, I commend Shay Darby for pronouncing this, producing it for the people. And I hope that when it does come up for a vote, that City Council and those that are not there that don't want to go with this proposal, I believe that they should change their vote, because as one lady said, a lot of them are getting paid off from these high real estate people to approve for this not to go through. So I thank City Council for bringing this, and I hope that it passes so that we can do better in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here in committee who would like to speak? Thank you for joining us, and please introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Della Roberts. I just want to say that I've been a landlord for over 40 years, mom and pop, small unit, single-family homes. And as a landlord, like the young lady said before, having units that you do rent below fair market value, that you have tenants in that's been there forever because they become family, you work with them. To me, I oppose this because whenever there's a problem, when you have tenants for a long time, the landlord steps in out of their pocket and they actually take care of any issues. For example, bed bugs. When you rent a unit, license inspections, they come in, they make sure it's okay. We don't get away with anything. We just don't put our properties out there to rent. They have to go through L&I. So you're given a unit that's satisfactory to the city. So you have tenants that come in sometime in the course, they have kids or other issues. Whenever there's a problem, whenever there's damage, the landlord has to fix it. And as a mom and pop unit, I'm under pressure because I'm afraid that when they come in, no matter what they see, I have to take care of it. The rent stays the same. There's nothing I can do but make sure that my tenant is satisfied, because sometimes there's a threat over your head that L&I is going to come in and pick the place apart. Again, you do have some tenants that are what we call professional tenants. They move from place to place, take advantage of programs, and that's another thing I've done. I've tried to help the city out by renting to Family Promise or other organizations that try to put people in the homes. They come in and inspect the unit. It's already okay. They make it okay. They approve it. But once the tenants come in, they move other people in. Whatever they do, again, the landlord is responsible for anything that's not up to par. And as far as raising the rent, fair market value, below market value. And when something happens if this changes, when something happens to any of my properties, I'm gonna be forced to sell, which is fine, give it to other prominent people or whatever. But I won't be able to have a nice family in a nice area with a nice home, because again, all the responsibility, as far as I see, will fall back on the landlord.
Thank you. Virtually, we have Lourdes M.
Yes. Can you hear me good?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Lourdes Rivera. I'm here on the 5th District. I'm a city councilor, Christian Weiler. And I just spoke on this matter the last time we met. And I've been hearing everyone that is speaking tonight. But they're not, to me, there's a missing point around here. I've been here on my house for the last 35 years, and the new houses, the new developer, they're saying the rent is not going to be affecting them now. That's part of the proposal. But people are just making, they're going by these big corporations, and they're not thinking of us. They're not thinking about the low income. They're not thinking about disability. They're not thinking about seniors. They're only thinking about other things that is going to benefit them. Rent stabilization should not be one thing and people confuse another. And it's been established. It's been very painful. When we talk about people with this issue, we are explaining to them. But a lot of people are afraid. A lot of people don't come forward to this meeting. And I'm glad they have the translation in Spanish, and that's not the point. But rent are not going down. In fact, they are going up. They're not. You're not going to find anything low income in the city of Delaware, in the city of Wilmington at all. Rent are going up, 25 to a 2-bedroom apartment. Is that not including the rest of your bill? Landlord charging whatever they want because no one is stopping them. They can do whatever. It should be a limit. We should not be just because the person that spoke, if there is an issue with an emergency. We understand that. Everybody, even me, we can go through an emergency. But one thing don't have to do with the other. Other cities had passed rent stabilization, and guess what? They did not lose housing. And the city removed rent control, affordable home. And then my question is, why are they keep bringing the corporation developer? Like someone said, a lot of, I don't say names, but a lot of couple of the city councils got this money for corporation. So I guess they don't want to lose them as their friend because that's where they get the money from. So what I'm saying is land banking also came for low income. No, that's not allowing low income, period, nothing. You go and rent a house that has been purchased by land banking, they pay over $2,000 on rent alone. That's not low income. So to me, it's an abuse going in the system. To me, it should be something that should be controlled. There's a lot of slum landlords. There's a lot of people taking advantage. Are you doing any of my city councilors that are here tonight or online? Are they really looking into this matter, or they just so negative that they don't want to even hear you out? I'm a low income, I'm in disability, I'm in social security. Are they thinking of me, or they're thinking about them? It should be thinking about that this is only to stop landlord for abusing the system, abusing the people that they are renting, people that may go or may not go. That's not the point. It's thinking of us as a renter, or even mortgages. I mean, that's not the point, but even mortgages are going sky high. It's not just rent, the mortgage too. It's affecting everything. And we had to go forward and pay our bills, and now we're going to be homeless. So I want
you
to
have 30
thank
seconds.
those that have been in favor of this ordinance. I want to say thank you to Chanel Darby for standing. I want to thank you for my city council, Christian. And I want to say thank you for those that are thinking not only about everything that has been brought up tonight, but think about us too. I mean, why
You have
should my
20
rent go up?
seconds.
So I appreciate the time. This is my first time on Zoom with the city councilors, and I just thinking about the ordinance next week. It's unfair that this ordinance is being moved around.
10
This is not
seconds.
this is not a domino game. They should just have left it there on June the 5th. Thank you for your time, Lourdes Rivera.
Thank you. Anyone else in committee like to speak? Sure, please. Yes, please come forward. Please introduce yourself. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. Thank you. My name is Hillary, and I just want to go over a couple things that was brought to my attention. So I've been helping with this bill for rent stabilization and just really spreading more awareness about it because I feel it is very important. But a friend of mine did come to me and asked how she can also help because her 84-year-old grandmother received a notice that on August 1st that her rent is going to go up $200. Now, I have to get the details on what district, but I believe she's in your district, Darby. So that would make her rent to go up $1,700. If that don't pull on your heartstrings, I don't know what will, because now that's an elderly woman on a fixed income now have to find another place to live, possibly away from her family who's been, helping her get to doctor's appointments and things like that. So when I moved to Delaware, because I'm a homeowner now, and I was attracted to the job market, and my rent would always go up. So I first-handedly, experienced this type of issue. My last apartment that I lived in was $1,000. By the time I left, it was $1,650, and that's in the span of 3 years. So it's just really ridiculous that this is happening. There's nothing there. So for the same apartment, there's no improvements, there's no nothing. So this is why I really feel strongly about this rent stabilization. It is a crucial issue. There's not many people. There's so many people in the community that is affected by this. And I also gained so much support from residents and nonprofits and some community members, and they are looking forward to this June 5th date. So I request that the committee can possibly keep that date because the community is aware of it. It's something that we have been socializing. So we want to be able to keep that date because that's going to impact. I have so many people that has called me, asked me about when, where. So we want to keep that date if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Online, we have Aaron and Tyrus. Aaron and Tyrus online.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. This is actually Keandra McDowell. I am the community activist around the whole state of Delaware. I want to speak tonight first as far as the council trying to change the date from what it was originally supposed to be. This will be, I believe, the second time that the date has been changed. I will be demanding and coming down to City Council and asking for the reason why the rent stabilization resolution bill is going to be postponed. We all have been working overtime to get people in the community who don't actually come to City Council meetings to show up for June 5th. So I believe that this is a slick tactic, you know, to try to discourage us as constituents and other people of the city of Wilmington. And I demand for June 5th for rent stabilization bill to be back on the program. As I'm hearing from landlords that who I've spoke and landlords who are actually on Zoom, to me, it just sounds like it's profit over people once again. And this is something that constantly happens. I don't understand how Councilwoman Darby continues to have meetings with you guys and get you guys' input, and she has worked overtime with trying to compromise. He has changed this resolution numerous of times. This is not just this year that we have been fighting for rent stabilization. We have been fighting for numerous years. As far as I'm concerned with the city council members, it's not your business or your job to pay attention to big corporations, BCG, I'm just throw that out there, and their counterparts. It's your job to do what your constituents want. Once again, I repeat this over and over. I never heard a place of employment, employee be able to tell their boss that this is not something that they're going to do. We elected you in this position. We hired you. We are your boss, which means that you're supposed to work for us. We don't work for you. So I think we need to put that on the record and get that understanding. Landlords that are complaining about this piece of bill or whatever about supply and demand, refrigerators and stoves and dishwashers and holes in the walls. This is not something that happens every day. I believe you get paid rent monthly. So I'm not understanding the pushback with this. You guys are disgusting to me. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I clarify the date? I think I gave them the wrong date.
Sure. Councilmember Darby.
Yeah, I just want to clarify the date. I also want to clarify something else about that I didn't even say. So they told me that the legislation cannot go on the June 5th agenda. They didn't even say the next city council meeting. So the next city council meeting after June 5th is actually June 18th because June 19th is our Juneteenth holiday. But June 18th will be the next city council meeting. They actually told me that it will have to go back to committee, actually. I got a lot going on today. But that's what they actually told me, that it won't even be June 18th. It'll actually go on to the next committee meeting for CDUB if we don't get it on the June 5th meeting. And I still haven't gotten a legitimate reason to why it needs to go back to committee. But so that's actually just to confirm.
Councilmember Willauer.
Is there more public comment or?
Oh, yes. Anyone else from the public? Yes, ma'am. Come on up. Please introduce yourself. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. My name is Maria Boucham, and I am here today as a resident of Wilmington and an advocate for housing justice. I came tonight not just to speak in favor of the rent stabilization ordinance, but to respectfully urge this body to place it on the voting agenda as soon as possible. Our families, our elders, our workers, and our neighbors cannot afford more delays. The fact that this ordinance is not currently on the voting agenda is deeply concerning to many in our community who have been showing up, speaking out, and sharing their experiences. People are struggling with rising rent. Some are on the rent hike away from losing their home. One more rent hike, and they will lose their home. And this is extremely concerning. We cannot continue asking them to wait for protections that could mean the difference between stability and crisis. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge concerns that have been raised, particularly by small landlords. These concerns are not unreasonable. In fact, this ordinance was written with those concerns in mind. It allows for exceptions when landlords are facing legitimate financial pressures, such as increased taxes, necessary repairs, or insurance spikes. If inflation impacts your ability to maintain your property, that too has been considered. This policy is not about punishing good landlords. It is about preventing abuse. It is about ending a pattern where some landlords, particularly those who view housing as nothing more than a profit stream, raise rents without regard to the impact on the people's lives. What worries me just as much as the delay on this tone as the delay on the agenda is the tone from some voices in opposition. There have been threats, actual threats, to pull out of Wilmington, to stop investing, to punish the city for standing up for its residents. That is not how responsible community members act. That is not how people that care for the ones that they serve should be speaking or acting. That is how power tries to preserve itself at the expenses of the people. Housing should never be threatened as a luxury. It is a necessity, just like clean water and safe streets. And our elected officials have a duty to protect access to housing for the people they serve. I ask that this council to act with urgency, to stand on the side of fairness, and to take leadership. Place this ordinance on the agenda so that it can receive the democratic process it deserves. Let the people of Wilmington see where their representatives stand. We have waited long enough, and our people are truly suffering. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, I would like to recognize Councilmember Cabrera, who has joined us virtually. We have Shane Pezic, virtual.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Shane Pezic. I've been a real estate agent in Wilmington for 10 years now. And I just wanted to say I'm not against the bill as a whole, but I would really ask and push for an exemption to be added for properties that are undergoing resale or just recently went through resale. The reason being is because I fear that a lot of landlords, if they choose to sell a property and the person buying the property can't raise the rent higher to market rent, it's inevitably going to sell for far less, $100,000 in most cases. And those landlords will choose to end the lease, make some repairs, and sell them to owner occupants. I did some numbers and calculations, and in this 4-year trial period that's proposed in this legislation, we could lose 20% of the rental properties that are currently in the city sold to owner occupants, and I don't think that's good for tenants or landlords. So please just ask to add an exemption for resale properties. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else here in the committee room who would like to speak? Seeing no hands raised, I'll go back to council members. Councilmember Willauer.
Thank you, Council President. I wanted to just thank everybody for coming out tonight and for the meeting when this legislation was introduced, and for all the people who've contacted me. I've had, phone conversations, I've had email exchanges. People bring up, there are definitely landlords who've contacted me with concerns, but there are other landlords who've told me that it would be fine and it wouldn't impact their business model, and that they could still make money with this rent stabilization bill. So I just want to thank everybody who's reached out to me. And there's also a lot of tenants who've reached out to me and said that they can't afford their rent to go up, and that when their rent goes up beyond a certain place, they have to move, and there's nowhere that they can find that they can afford. So I think that we need legislation to address this issue of rising rents. I think that it's a new day in Wilmington, which is part of the reason why I think rent stabilization matters today. A lot of people from New York and New Jersey are looking to invest in Wilmington. They are coming here, online, you get these advertisements, buy in Wilmington, there's no rent control, and it creates, it just creates this spiral of people who buy, and this is happening in the 5th District. I see, people from New York, investors buying in Wilmington because it's cheaper than New York, and they bring that additional revenue, and then they want to charge, higher rents to support the higher money that they paid. And I just think that we have to do something to address that spiral. So I think this legislation is a start. I also understand that, we're also talking about what the challenges with L&I. There have been challenges with L&I for years that haven't gotten resolved. I definitely understand the landlord's concern that they're going to get a fair shake from the city of Wilmington. That has to be something that we really pay attention to. But I don't think it's okay just to do nothing because we are thinking about operational issues. I think we have to focus on addressing those operational issues as a top priority. So, again, I want to thank Councilwoman Darby for bringing this up and for everybody who's been part of the conversation, put in their 2 cents. And I would like to ask, Council President, is there a possibility that we can have this legislation on the agenda next week? I mean, doesn't council set its own agenda or how does that work? That's all I have, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else virtually? No. So yes, I'm gonna address that. I'm just checking with staff. That's why I was up here texting. I do apologize, but so right now, do you want to speak to this? You want me to speak to it?
No, you can speak to it.
So right now, law is saying that Councilmember Darby's amendments have changed the legislation so much that it's almost a new piece of legislation. So they're saying it has to go back to committee to be voted out of committee, to be discussed, and then hopefully voted out of committee and then come to council. So I don't believe that to be true. I think Councilmember Darby has even mentioned that before. There have been several times when on council floor we have made so many amendments to different pieces of legislation that a lot of council members didn't even understand the new piece of legislation, and there was never any pushback. So I mean, if it's up to me as president, it will be on the agenda. But again, I need to talk to staff and to law. I just don't want to do anything that's illegal. But if it's my choice, it will be on the agenda for next Thursday. Councilmember Darby?
Yeah, I just want to say, in regards to that, we had the residency legislation on our last term. And when we were on the floor, we made the amendments I have for this legislation doesn't even match the amendments that we did to the residence amendment, where we added committees, we added this, we added that on the floor. Right. And we never got pushback to put it into committee. But they're giving us pushback on this specific legislation, so I can make all the speculations, but it's just disheartening that they're doing that and pushing us back to put it into committee when this has not been the history of what happened with other pieces of legislation that I have ever worked on, that they're now doing it to this rent stabilization. So I hope that we can have it on June 5th. If not, it will have to go back to a whole committee, y'all. So thank you.
Yeah, we'll know. We'll know within the next 24 hours. I'm gonna talk to staff, and if I can do it, I'm gonna do it, and it will be updated on our website. And I'm sure we'll all talk about it on social media. Thank you.
Is there a possibility that if there's some issues with getting...
Can you come to the mic, please?
If there's a possibility, we know that sometimes floor amendments are made, like we just said, and we know that amendments are supposed to be placed on the bill 7 days before the agenda. If need be, is it something that council would be willing to do to make the floor amendments, just make those amendments on the floor like they've done with residency and several other bills? That way we are not delaying June 5th.
Yeah, because for that to happen, it would have to be on the agenda. And again, I set the agenda, so I'm gonna have it on there. But again, I just don't know legally, because law is saying that it can't be on there. But I set the agenda, so
yeah,
so. Again, if it's my call, it's going to be on there.
Okay. It sounds like law is also going to try to use FOIA laws against, even though they waited till the last minute to make this decision. So I just hope that City Council knows that on June 5th, we will be rallying outside of City Hall. That is already planned. June 5th was already put out from multiple organizations that people will show up. So I don't think it matters if it's on the agenda. I think you guys need to just be prepared that people will be in the hall that day, and they will be calling for rent stabilization, and you know how people in Wilmington get. So I just want to, I just want to clarify. It wasn't like threatening. I'm just saying like it should just be clarifying it.
All right, thank you. Just want to, okay, we have one more person from the public who wants to speak virtually, Megan Wilson.
I just am asking to keep it, if we can please keep it the 5th, because a lot of people have planned to come, like, even from like lower Delaware, you know, that are invested into this area, you know, and we would like to keep it what we've planned. That's all.
All right, thank you. We also have from our staff, Marshall Bassanite.
Hi, President. I just want to let you know that the president of City Council sets the council agenda. It's my understanding from the law department, they had just best advised that with substantial amendments for it to go back to the committee. It's nothing in writing that, you know, nothing to our knowledge or that law has shared as of this moment to say that it must go back to committee. So I just want to mention that for the record.
All right, thank you. And Marshall, I don't know if you want to talk about this offline or not, but so if I want to put it on the agenda, what's the next step? Just, I want to be as transparent as possible with the public, but you know, also know that we have to be careful because of, you know, FOIA.
So we will, if we were to put this on the agenda, we would have to do it today, which we still have time to make that happen.
Okay, so yes, I would like it on the agenda.
Okay.
All right, thank you. You're welcome. All right, I don't see anyone else virtually. And Councilmember Darby, did you have any closing remarks?
No closing remarks. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next agenda item is a discussion on the strategic plan survey. Who is going to speak to this?
So I will be brief, and just for the benefit of the public. The strategic plan is basically just a plan as council members address pressing constituent concerns, that they also have a blueprint for accomplishing long-term goals. So the original strategic plan was created in 2017. It was revised in 2022, and it will finish in 2025, which allowed this session a little time to decide what their strategic goals are. So a survey was sent out, phase 1 survey, 3 questions. Thank you to those of you who have responded. If you have not, I do have print copies available. I can resend the link. And I will just say the 3 questions are your top 10 concerns for your district or the city at large if you're an at-large council member. What are the 10 most important things that could be done to improve your district? And then there is a list of broad strategic plan goals, somewhat based on the previous plan and also taking into consideration some of the new things that are maybe pressing matters in the next 4 to 5 years, and asking council members to choose their top 5 priorities from that list. So that is phase 1 of the project. We have, as of today, 8 responses. So those of you who have not responded, again, I have print copies, and I can resend the link if anyone is online. And that will help be able to devise a longer, flesh out into a fuller blueprint for the rest of the session. So if there are any questions or any concerns, if anyone has seen the survey and they have any questions.
Any council members online? No, okay. No questions from council.
Okay. So that's all I have as far as updates.
Okay.
Just encouraging for the phase 1 process, and then the phase 2 process will be to go more in depth and try to get a sense of what council members feel should be the right approaches for those priorities that they choose collectively.
All right, thank you. Are you also speaking to the next
Yes.
item? Okay.
The Police Accountability Board.
Yes, it's a discussion on the Police Advisory Board, Citizen Review Board appointments.
Yes, so just a very general update. The Wilmington Community Police Accountability Board, we have been soliciting nominations. So on March 6th, a call was sent out to the council members asking for nominations. By March 14th, we did receive a few nominations, but the main issue has been that of the nominees we received, some of them were not city residents. And as the ordinance is written, I'm sorry, just an overview for the benefit of the public. Council has 3 appointments. This is a 7, the full board has 7 voting members. The council has 3 appointments. One of them is a community member. One of them has to be someone in the mental health community with mental health training, as defined by NAMI, the National Association of Mental Illness. And one has to be a member of the education community. And as the ordinance is written, all these appointments need to be city residents. So in addition to asking the council members for nominations, we did reach out to NAMI. They had some potential suggestions, but they also were not residents of the city of Wilmington. We also, those nominations who were not residents of the city of Wilmington from council members were also asked if they could propose nominees. And again, there was the problem of some residents, some candidates either not being residents or not fitting into the criteria for the 3 members of the Police Accountability Board. Are there any questions or?
Any questions from council? Chief of Staff, Elijah
Yes,
Simmons.
just a brief comment. Kendra, did you want to mention the 2 positions that we're currently still looking for?
Yes. So the 2 current positions are a member of the mental health community, and the eligibility requirements would be that they are a city resident and that they do have mental health training as defined by the National Association of Mental Illness, and also a member of the education community. So someone with experience in the education sector.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Did you have a comment? You can come to the mic, please, or come to you can have a seat or, all right, thank you.
How would you get that information?
You mean to nominate?
Kendra, can you speak into the mic, please? Thank you.
Do you mean to nominate a person or?
Right, the information on how you would, let's say I was in mental health and I wanted to, you know.
I could get your information and let you know where to send it to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I should also mention that for each of the nominees, they were shared the ordinance itself to give them more background and let them know what the criteria are. And they are, those nominees, even if they were not eligible, did say that they are willing to recommend if they do find a city resident. I would say I would recommend possibly in the future considering amending the code to say that someone who lives or works within the city of Wilmington, it might give a broader pool for a nominee.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the update. So if anyone is listening and you would like to be considered, or if you know someone you would like to nominate, you can please contact us at City Council at 302-576-2140. Again, our number is 302-576-2140. Are there any other comments, questions, concerns from anyone on council? From anyone in the public? Okay, there is an additional, one more public comment from Aaron and Tyrus.
Hello, everyone. My name is Keandra McDowell. I'm speaking again. Is this the same board that City Council was asking for recommendations from the NAACP and ACLU? I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I'm only asking because I know that a couple people in the community was nominated through them specific organizations, and I was one of them. And we haven't heard anything back from it. So that's my question. Thank you.
Kendra?
Do you? Okay.
Yes, please.
So, yes and no. So the ordinance was substantially changed due to some changes with state legislation. So the original, which would have been the Citizens Review Board, was changed to the Wilmington Community Police Accountability Board. And based on that legislation, the recommendations from community organizations were kind of brought into people within those sectors, if that makes sense. So some of those.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yes. So I think the essence of some of the sectors that those organizations represent are still in the ordinance, but some are nominations from the mayor and not from the city council.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kendra.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kendra. All right, we want to thank everyone who joins us this evening virtually and everyone who is in committee room with us right now. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your passion, your comments. And with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All right, it's been moved and second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.